Hello, and thank you so much for tuning in. So today we are going to be continuing along with my declutter series, and as you can probably tell from the products in front of the camera at this very awkward angle, which will hopefully make more sense towards the end of the video, I'm going to be decluttering my foundations. I also hope to tackle concealers as well as, or sorry, not concealers, we already did concealers. I hope to tackle powders, face powders, and bronzers and contours as well. Hopefully I should be able to put all of that in one video.
Nope.
Because I don't think I'll have too much to say about all of those products. But nonetheless, we will start with foundations. This organizer, which this is an organizer, which again, hopefully it'll all kind of make more sense when I zoom out, but this is an organizer and I wasn't using it, but I did used to use this organizer, and I used to keep my foundations in here. In fact, there were some foundations that were sitting in here when I wasn't using it, so a lot of what's in here is going to need to just be thrown out, and some of what's in here is actually basically empty anyways. And then I have some foundations that are out of frame that I'm going to put into this organizer because I am going to start using this organizer to store my foundations again. So let's go ahead and get started. The first foundation that I have here is the Smashbox Studio Skin 15-Hour Wear Hydrating Foundation. And as you can see, this bottle is completely empty essentially. There is a small pool of foundation at the very bottom of the bottle, but this is like really old, and I've gotten my money's worth out of this foundation. This is the shade 4.2. This is actually a perfect shade match for me, and I really loved this foundation pretty much all the way through the last time that I used it. So this is one that I actually would repurchase in the future, especially considering the fact that it was a perfect match for me. And this was also the only foundation I've ever come across, well, one of the only ones I've come across that is like almost transfer proof. Not quite, because I don't think there is such a thing as a transfer proof foundation. This one does claim to be transfer proof, and I was like, bold claim, but it actually was pretty good as far as not transferring. So I really did enjoy this foundation. I have a few that I need to get through, so I'm not going to immediately repurchase this, but this was definitely one that I enjoyed. But it's time to go ahead and chuck this bottle. Next up, I have this, which is another empty bottle. This is the NARS Sheer Glow Foundation, and this is the shade New Orleans or New Orleans. Now, I think NARS has actually changed the formula, not the formula, but the colors in their shade range for this foundation, and also the packaging, which I will showcase a little bit later because I do have a couple of other bottles of Sheer Glow, but I did finish this entire bottle. This is a holy grail foundation for me, and this was the first bottle I did purchase of this. New Orleans is a little too dark for me, but I did enjoy wearing it. I think it was like a couple of summers ago. It just looked really nice on my skin. It's like a medium coverage, medium buildable foundation. It just looked really skin-like. This one is gone, so we're gonna go ahead and get rid of this one. Next up, this is my Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation, which is slightly open, probably because this is one of those foundations that's super messy at the opening. Mine is in the shade 5W2? No, 6W1, sorry, 6W1 Sandalwood. And I have the slightest bit of this left. In fact, I have a piece of tape there, probably, I don't know if you can see it, that I was trying to mark where I was with it because it's kind of hard to see where you are in this foundation. But I still have probably just like the tiniest bit of foundation left in here. So I think I'm going to hold on to this and use it again, assuming that this hasn't like gone off or anything. Okay, I just smelled it and it doesn't really smell off. I mean, it smells kind of like paint, but that's just how this foundation smells. So I think I am going to just try to use up the last little bit of this foundation. I really did enjoy this foundation. It is very full coverage, and the only other foundation I would say is very close to also being transfer proof, which you would assume this would be because it is super matte and super full coverage. But this is a nice foundation for when you want kind of like a full glam type of look. So I would repurchase this, but again, I definitely have a lot of foundations to go through currently, so it's not something in the cards for me to repurchase right now. So since I'm keeping this one, I'm just gonna put it off to the side there. The next foundation, I'll talk about this one. This is the Tarte Amazonian Clay 12-Hour Full Coverage Foundation. This is actually really old. I have mine in the shade, they don't even have this anymore, but it's the shade Deep. So now, you know, they have like all the sands and the honeys. This was back before they had all of those, so that's how you know this is really old. In fact, I think I got this on sale right before they expanded the shade range, and this used to be the darkest shade, which is crazy. I actually do want to swatch this for you because it's ridiculous that this was the darkest shade. And you know, this is kind of Tarte's MO. This has been their MO. This is what they do. That's why the whole Tarte Shape Tape Gate thing wasn't really surprising to anybody who's familiar with their shade range in the past. But that's the shade. It looks pretty decent on my hand, but I promise you that this shade looks atrocious on the skin. Yeah, you can kind of see it's like pretty, it's looking pretty neutral. It always came off really light on the skin, so I had to mix this with something to make it a little bit darker when I did wear it. This is really old, so I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm just tired of having to like try to work with this foundation to get it to look good on me, and I've had this for years now. Like, I want to say, yeah, this is like college days, so like it's definitely time for this foundation just to go in general. I did really like this foundation when I could get it to work for me via mixing it with other things. It looked good on the skin, but why purchase from, even though they probably have a shade that would suit me a little bit better nowadays, I don't really feel like buying foundation from Tarte when there's so many other great brands that carry my foundation shade, you know, when they release a foundation and not, you know, 6 months or a year down the line. So I am going to go ahead and finally declutter this one. And I feel like I did use a lot of this one as well, but it's probably not even all that visible because this foundation comes with 1.7 fluid ounces, which is almost double the standard fluid ounce. So, I mean, it was a pretty good deal for a foundation, but again, not the right shade, and this is super old, so I'm going to go ahead and toss it. Next up, this is another one that's practically empty. Yeah, you can see on the sides there. This is the Too Faced Born This Way foundation in the shade Mahogany. Fun fact, I did not finish this foundation up as a foundation. I finished this as color corrector because that's how orange this foundation is. In fact, I am still insulted that this shade even exists in their range. I know that they've expanded a few times, and this shade just shouldn't exist. Like, I remember seeing so many people with darker skin tones reviewing this particular shade, and everybody that I watched said this was too orange for them. So I just believe that there's no person that this foundation actually matches unless you just so happen to be an Oompa Loompa. I'll go ahead and see if I can't swatch some of it so you can just see how orange this foundation is. So there it is right there. I mean, you can tell, like, look how orange that is. I mean, it really is. I would call this a burnt orange. This isn't even a brown with a slightly orange undertone. This is a burnt orange. So I was able to use this shade as a color corrector, which is absolutely ridiculous. To be fair, I honestly did kind of like it as a color corrector. However, I wouldn't buy this shade again because, again, I just think that this shade shouldn't exist. Like, if this were a color corrector from Too Faced, that'd be great, but it's not. It's a foundation that just has a really poor undertone. And then another thing to note is that this shade used to be like the only shade that was available for anybody with even close to my skin tone. So the fact that they only had like the one shade and it was so off is like really tragic. So that's done, and that is garbage. So these two back here are the Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundations. I have two, one in the shade Mocha and one in the shade Espresso. These are also quite strong in their undertones. This one is orange, not as orange as Too Faced Mahogany, and then this one is a little bit more red. So I found that these didn't really work out all that well for me color wise. And on top of that, nobody mentioned this initially when I was watching reviews of these, because I got this foundation because it was super hyped up, and I mean, it was really affordable. In fact, I couldn't even find these shades in stores. No drugstores I went to carried these shades, even though I go to drugstores in areas where there are quite a few dark skinned people. No drugstore I saw carried these shades. So I ordered these online, and nobody said that these smell like paint, which, I mean, I guess that can be kind of sort of a common phenomenon with some foundations. Like I just mentioned, the Estee Lauder Double Wear has a sort of paint-like smell, but these smell very heavily of paint, and the scent did not go away. So I couldn't get behind using these for that reason, but also I didn't really care for the way these looked on the skin. I mean, it looked like foundation on the skin. It looked really heavy and cakey on the skin. I contemplated keeping Mocha as a color corrector, and this is the one that I did use more, and I did actually use it for a little bit as a color corrector, but, and you can maybe tell by that little part of the bottle that's peeking through, but I didn't enjoy either of these, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them. So we're looking pretty good, almost empty here. This is a Covergirl CC cream in the shade Espresso. This is from the Queen collection, which I heard has now been discontinued, which is pretty sad. This particular one was in the shade Espresso, and this was actually a little bit too dark for me, which was unheard of. I had never come across a BB or CC cream that was too dark for me. I always just automatically would grab the darkest one. Of course, leave it to the queen line to, you know, actually have shades that work for deeper skin tones. I wasn't really thinking about that. I just automatically instinctively bought the darkest shade, so this was a little bit too dark. But the great thing was I found that this worked really well with that Tarte foundation that I just decluttered, and because this was a CC cream, it didn't affect, it was a little sheer, so it didn't affect the formula of anything that I mixed it with too much. But I do feel like this is probably almost empty. This is a little window where you can see the shade of the product, but I'm seeing through to the actual like bottle in some places, so, and it feels pretty light, so I'm pretty sure this is almost finished anyways. But I am going to throw this out because it's pretty old, and I basically just used it to mix with the Tarte foundation, and I'm throwing that out, so I don't really have a use for this anymore anyways. This is another foundation that is practically, again, empty. A little bit more in here, I guess, but this is really old, so I'm just gonna go ahead and throw it out anyways. This is the Milani Conceal and Perfect 2-in-1 Foundation and Concealer. This is the shade 13 Chestnut. I really did enjoy this foundation. It was not great for me being an oily skin person. However, it just had a really beautiful skin-like finish while also providing a lot of coverage. So I would purchase this again. Definitely this is one that would require, you know, a lot of preparation, you know, and setting the face with powder if you have oily combination skin. But it was a really nice foundation, especially for the drugstore. So I liked it, and I got my money's worth out of it. Oh, another thing is this shade 13 Chestnut was a little bit too rich for me, but I loved the way the shade looked on me in the summertime. So I would repurchase this again. If I was buying it in the winter, I might see what the next shade up or next shade down from this is, number 12. If not, in the summer I would repurchase this shade 13. So yeah, loved this foundation. So the only foundation I ended up keeping from this organizer was the Estee Lauder Double Wear, and even that is on its way out. But let me talk about the foundations that I happen to have that are not necessarily on their way out. So the first one that I have is the Sunday Riley Influencer Foundation. I did do a video reviewing this foundation. It's not really a foundation, it's really a BB cream, and I think that's why this ended up kind of flopping the way that it did. A lot of people gave this really poor reviews because Sunday Riley said this was a medium to full coverage foundation, which is literally the opposite of what it actually is. It's not even a light coverage foundation, it is a BB cream. So I do have it in the shade 280. This is the one that I kept because I reviewed 3 different shades. So this is the one that I kept. It is a really nice product for it to be like a BB cream or CC cream. I guess it almost kind of takes the place of that Covergirl CC cream that I'm getting rid of. This is ever so slightly darker than me, but because it's a CC cream, it doesn't really matter. So I can use this for mixing in with other shades that I have in my collection, and that's probably how I intend to finish this product up. Next up, I have this Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Full Coverage Foundation. I have the shade F13, which I'm pretty upset about because what I didn't realize was that this product comes in half shades as well, but they don't sell the half shades in stores. They only sell the whole numbers in stores. So this was the best that I could do in Ulta. It's not bad, it's just slightly, maybe a little bit lighter than what I would like, but it does have a nice golden tone to it. I do have mixed feelings about this foundation. I feel like it definitely does provide a good amount of coverage on the face. I just feel like it looks a little bit too foundation-like for me. It starts to look a little bit cakey. It does have a doe foot applicator though, which I really like. That's actually why I decided to pick this foundation up, because I don't know, I find foundations like this to be really, really convenient. A lot of times I will use concealer in lieu of foundation, so I think that having a doe foot to apply your product is actually really convenient. So I'll go ahead and swatch this shade so you can see kind of what it looks like on me, but again, my hand is not going to be the best representation, but that's what that shade looks like right there. Next up, I have this Clinique Even Better Makeup, and I think it's really cool that they don't even call this foundation, they just call it makeup. This foundation was not on my radar, but Ulta offered this as a free gift with purchase for Diamond members earlier this year, and this is the only product thus far that I've been interested in. So I decided to pick it up. Like I said, I have the shade Golden. I was really torn on what shade to get because this is a shade range, or this is a foundation in which Clinique has expanded the shade range. I think they also expanded their other sort of more well-known foundation, which is also another one that comes with the doe foot, so I'd be really interested in trying that in the future as well. But I ended up getting the shade Golden because this is one that existed beforehand, and this is the one that I saw people close to my skin tone using. I do think that if I could go back in time, I probably would have gotten the next sort of golden tone shade up from this, which was called Mocha. But this one actually does work out pretty well. I really, really like this foundation. It's $29, which I feel like is a pretty nice price when you consider sort of like higher end foundations, because most of them are definitely over $30, over $40. And this is, I don't know, this has such a skin like finish. I feel like it's definitely a light coverage foundation, but I feel like it does actually do a pretty decent job for it to be light coverage of kind of covering up your imperfections or making your imperfections look a little bit more, I don't know, like balanced with your face. So I really like this product a lot. Like I really do. I even contemplated going straight out and buying the next shade up that is also golden, which I said was Mocha. I think Mocha, this is 114 golden, and I think Mocha's like 115.5 or something, but I really like this product. It is really nice, and I'm going to continue to use it. It's definitely one that, again, would require some setting if you're just using it by itself and you're an oily skin person, but I think the finish more than makes up for that. So next up, I guess I'll talk about my two NARS Sheer Glow foundations that I have that are not empty, and this is the shade Macao, and this is the shade Marquises, I believe is how you say it. At least that was the American pronunciation of it. It may not be the correct like French pronunciation, but Macao is the one that I had first. And I bought this one after realizing that New Orleans was a little bit too rich for my skin. But Macao, I feel like, is still a little bit off from what I would like. It has a really nice golden undertone to it, but I feel like it's still a little bit lighter than I would personally like. It actually matches my chest perfectly, which I know everybody says you're supposed to match your chest, but I'm used to seeing my skin without makeup, and my face naturally is darker than my chest, so that's why I feel like the whole matching your face to your chest thing is a little bit strange to me, because naturally my face looks darker than my chest, so that's how I'm used to seeing my face. So if I put on a foundation that's lighter and matches my chest, it just, to me, it looks off. So that's how I feel about Macao. Macao matches my chest, but it's still lighter than my face, so it's not a perfect match for me, but I thought that in the wintertime this worked definitely better for me because I do tan quite a bit in the summer. So I do have this. I actually lost this for quite some time because I moved and then I couldn't find this after I moved. So I rediscovered this foundation not that long ago, but I am glad to have it back because I do really, really like this formula. Then I recently picked up this shade Marquise or Marquises. So initially I actually repurchased New Orleans because I wanted to have that to kind of mix with Macao, because I figured that would be like a perfect match, and you know, I could still wear New Orleans on its own anytime that I wanted to, when I wanted to kind of a richer, more bronzy look. But I think that they changed the formula, or they changed the shade rather. They did add some new shades to their collection. This shade right here is actually a new shade. It wasn't a part of their line originally. So I think that I know that they changed New Orleans because I have the old bottle like I just showed you, and I got, I scraped out whatever I could from the bottle and swatched it next to the new version of New Orleans that I purchased, and they were different colors. So this shade I feel like actually matches what New Orleans used to look like a little bit better. I still wish I could find something that was a little bit darker than Macao but still had a golden tone to it. I believe this shade is classified as being in that golden tone range, as is New Orleans, but I feel like both of them were a little bit too red or orangey for my taste. So I do have this. I can mix it with Macao, and it does make a sort of nicer, richer foundation. And I am going to hold on to this and use it because I do, again, like the formula, but again, not a perfect shade match. Next up, I have this Lancome Tint Idoole Ultra Wear, and mine is in the shade 500W. I purchased this foundation back in fall of last year because I think Ulta was having a sale on it. Not a sale, but I think they were having a points event. So you got a lot of points if you purchased this foundation. So I remember back when I tried Estee Lauder Double Wear, I actually purchased this foundation as well. And I got the shade 510 Suede C, if I'm not mistaken, which was a little bit too dark for me. So I ended up returning that, and I kept Estee Lauder Double Wear, which is that same bottle that I showed you earlier. And I always meant to revisit Lancome Tint Idoole. So when I saw it on sale at Ulta, I was like, okay, this might be the time to try it. So I got the next shade down, 500 Suede W. This is a perfect match for me. This is one of the most perfect matches of foundation I've ever come across, which is great, right? The only problem I have with this foundation is that I don't actually care too much for the formula. It's like the saddest tragedy ever because the shade match is so perfect. Again, it's gonna look darker on my hand because my face is actually darker than my hand, but it's perfect. It has that really nice golden undertone to it. It's not really red or orange, like it's perfect. But unfortunately, I don't care for this foundation. It definitely is full coverage, like the name suggests, but I find that this, unlike Double Wear, has a tendency to look kind of cakey on the skin. Estee Lauder Double Wear is definitely a foundation that you could see on the skin, but it just looked like a nice, even matte foundation. This kind of looked cakey and thick on the skin. And it also creased on me into my smile lines and also some lines that I have underneath my eyes, which is a problem that I totally forgot that I had until I tried this foundation, because lately I had been trying foundations that didn't do that to me, and then I remembered that, oh yeah, that's a problem that I used to have with some foundations. So that was unfortunate. I did recently try it with a sample of the Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer. Mind you, sometimes I don't even use primers with foundations because a lot of times I think that they're scams, and the ones that I do use tend to work well underneath my foundation. So I used the Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer that I had a sample of it, and I remember thinking that my foundation looked better that day. So I'll have to try that again to see if I can't get this to work, because I've really been trying to make this work because I'd like to make this work, even if just to finish up this bottle that I have of it, because I don't want it to go to waste. So I'm going to keep this foundation. I, again, love the shade, but unfortunately was not my favorite formula. Next up, I have the Bobbi Brown Skin Long Wear Weightless Foundation. This I have in the shade Golden Almond 6.75. This is a more recent acquisition for me as well. Macy's had a deal where you got this and a full-size face base for, I believe it was like $60, which would bring the price of this foundation down to $30 and the price of the face base down to $30. And this foundation I think normally retails close to $50, I want to say, and face base, the full size, is $60. So that's actually a really good deal. I do like face base. I've tried face base. I think it's really nice. In fact, maybe I should try that underneath my Lancome foundation and see how that goes. But I had been wanting to try this foundation for a really long time too, because generally I've had pretty good luck so far with the Bobbi Brown complexion products that I've tried. So I wanted to give this a try, and again, this is another shade that I just feel like is a little bit too rich and red for me, but that's fine. I will continue to just mix it with other products. I'll try this out some more and see what my thoughts are, but I'm definitely going to hold on to it. Then I can't believe that this is last, but this is the Fenty Beauty Pro Filt'r Longwear Foundation. Mine looks super busted because I've taken this bottle with me everywhere. This is actually down to its last little bit, as well as you can see that I may have to take the top or the lid off in order to get to the rest of the foundation, but I do want to finish this up. I loved this foundation. I would repurchase this foundation. In fact, the only reason I haven't finished it is just because I got distracted by other things, and this also is one of those foundations that it went missing actually in a purse, which is probably why it looks crazy, because I was carrying it around in a purse. But I do want to finish up this last little bit. I would buy this again in a heartbeat. I think it was a really great foundation. I talked about it, I think, in a month in review video that I did. So yeah, I'd buy this again. It's a good foundation. It's light to medium coverage, but also matte at the same time, and just looks really good on the skin. So that is it. These are all of my foundations, which I can't believe. I feel like seeing them all like this makes it seem like I have a lot less than I anticipated, which maybe that's good. So what is that? Yeah, 9 foundations, which is not bad, and a couple of them are on their way out anyways.